No matter what time period you live in, the idea of objections are just one of those things that come along with sales. It's like peas and carrots. You're going to find them together. Maybe not all the time. But the point, though, you can't get away from sales without finding objections. But how do you handle those objections during this time period, specifically during the coronavirus, the pandemic era? In this episode, my friend Kristi Strickland is going to tell us what she does and give an example of a company that you probably have heard of. We won't tell you the name, and how she's been able to work and help people overcome those objections and to find success. You're going to love this episode. Hey, everyone. Welcome to another great episode of the Sales Evangelist Podcast here on TSC TV on YouTube. I'm your host, Donald Kelly, the Sales Evangelist, and I'm so excited for another great episode. I'm so excited to be here with you today. And on this episode, as I mentioned, we have Kristi Strickland. She works with an amazing company called Sales Loft, and she has worked in different capacities in that organization and with other companies. So she brings a wealth of knowledge, especially when it comes towards handling objection. And today, she's going to talk to us specifically about COVID. And I don't know about you. You've probably gotten hit more with different types of objection from prospects telling you we can't do this right now, it's too expensive, or for whatever different reasons. And some of it they're valid reasons right now, but there's different ways that we can handle those. We can take care of them in unique ways and to help the buyer and you still see success. We will talk about that, and you'll hear, as I mentioned in the teaser, an example that Kristi shared in the second half of this episode, how she was able to, and her team, overcome and to circumvent a big company's challenge, and how that company still stayed with them and how it turned into a great thing for everyone. Let's dive in, hear her story, and let's help you in your efforts as well. Kristi, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Donald.
Of course. I'm looking forward to this episode to talk to you, because especially right now, I was just on a training session this morning with a team, and a lot of these individuals were having difficulties with objection. And it's just one of those areas that we find that salespeople struggle with, and especially in the new COVID era. How do we handle those objections? Because they're going to be objections that a lot of them are just like genuinely true stuff. It's not like I'm just trying to push the person off, which those will never go away. But oftentimes it's because something, the person really means it. So I want to hear your thoughts first off as we dive into this part about objections in general, and even before COVID. Like, what are your personal views of objections?
Yeah, absolutely. So that's a very valid point for the new COVID world that we live in, right? We're in sales. Objections has always been one of those things that's there and definitely not going to go anywhere. And I think that COVID has definitely amplified those things, right? And so the real point has always been for me, just like everything else in sales, is the why. Why are we getting this objection? What is it they're actually trying to achieve at the other side of this pushback? Is it me as the rep not doing my part to clearly explain the value prop? Is it something specific to, where they feel they don't have enough information to go to their leadership and ask for the sale, right? Or is it a matter of they're just trying to negotiate, that type of tactic? So really identifying the why and understanding why is it they're saying this to me.
Do you, when you see it and people don't, well, let's back up a little bit. So I'm going to come back to the why, because I feel that you're right there 100% on that. What about when, in your experience, when you look at sales reps or team members that are not asking the why, do you feel that is because they just don't know they should be digging that deep, or is it some other reasons that are not readily discussed?
Yeah, so I think it ultimately comes down to people not just having a conversation like we are now, right? Everybody has this motive that at the end of the day, we have to get to this contract, and that's the point of that's the end goal, right? But it's about slowing down and actually understanding that journey, right? Like, obviously I'm talking to you for a reason. There's a reason you took my initial call. And so just like everything, like, if you have little kids, it's always why? That's something that as adults, we forget to we forget to keep asking. And so I think that's the main thing, is for reps to understand, to remember to ask the why for every part of the sales cycle.
You know, and one of the things that I agree with you there too, there's a concept that we've used, it's called the 5 whys, and Toyota's framework, how they do the operations, and a lot of companies. I read about in Eric Ries's book, The Lean Startup. But one of the things that it emphasizes, if you ask why, pretty much like 3 to 5 times, you're going to get to the real root reason, that real cause deep down inside. And in my view, with sales reps, I can tell you, let's speak from Donald's experience. Now, as a young seller, my reason was because I didn't have the maturity. Now, let me explain what that. I feel like it's more of like I didn't want to come across as. I felt if I asked that question that you might get mad at me as a prospect, essentially. Like I don't want to mess up this good thing that I have going, even though you told me you need to go back and think about it. I didn't want to tick you off.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. It comes down to the confidence in yourself as a seller, which, as you mentioned, I think comes from experience and getting knocked down several times, but also getting those wins, right? You feel the confidence to know, okay, I know what I'm talking about. I can continue to ask these second and third and fourth level questions because I know that I have the knowledge and the meat behind it to be able to answer whatever may come about if I keep digging, right? But then it also comes from, the confidence in yourself, but also the confidence in whatever it is that you're selling. Like, you have to believe in it yourself and have done enough due diligence on your own part to really fully understand the product and all the things that are available. And sometimes the newer reps, they haven't had that time yet, and so they don't ask why, and they don't go deep enough out of fear for losing that credibility, like you're talking about. Like, are you going to get mad at me if I ask you this question? It's like, no, I know what I'm talking about. I know why you need me, and I'm asking you why.
Yeah, and I think usually I can't tell you that a prospect ever got upset when I eventually started doing that. Like, it was just this song, all in my head.
Yeah, over and over again, absolutely. And you're right, honestly. And because a lot of people are used to being sold at this point, right? We live in a very transactional world now, and honestly, I think prospects respect the fact that you're asking why. You're not just stopping at that surface level and saying, "Okay, ask you one question. Here's a $100K contract that you need to sign." They respect if you do all of those steps, right? And because people buy from people at the end of the day, and if they can see, hey, she's going through, or he or she's going through and checking all the boxes and asking all the right things, they're more inclined to buy from you anyway because they respect your
I think
your
there's when I look at it and think about it from the buyer standpoint, most of them are selling in some way, whether they have teams, whether they might not be a salesperson, but if they're a marketing director or if they are, human resources, they have to sell ideas to folks as well. And they recognize that they wouldn't just go off a whim and just give a solution without asking and clarifying and understanding. So I think they come back with that understanding, and it's important. And you mentioned something I thought was very critical. You feel it too. If you were to do that to me, and I would, in a buyer situation, I would come across, understand that, feel from your standpoint that you're a professional, that she's being thorough, that she has done this before, because it sounds like you've done this before. That's why you're asking these specific questions. You're trying to get to something. It helps build my trust.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you're right. Like, everybody is selling something. It might not be a tangible product, it might not be a service specifically, but even if it's an idea, or you're trying to acquire this new product for your team internally to use, right? Either you're selling it to your boss, even if you're the CEO, you're selling it to the board and investors. Like, you're always going to be selling something, and people respect that, because while we might be selling a tangible SaaS solution, somebody else is just selling an idea.
How did you get to the point where you had the confidence to overcome that? Let's put ourselves back in those situations. But everybody here they already know enough about me. But let's hear about Kristi. How did you get to the point where you were so confident and bold in being able to ask those whys and go deep? What can somebody do to fix that?
Well, number one is giving yourself grace, right? It comes with time. I can tell you, day one as an SDR, I did not have that confidence. It took me being terrified. I don't even want to make this call because I have a feeling they're going to tell me no, right? So I haven't always been this, look, you're going to sign this contract today type person. So I definitely, number one, believe in yourself. Give yourself grace that it's a journey. It's not something that you're supposed to be good at day one. And then I think, too, really taking the time to invest in all the different sales motions. I've been thankful enough that I've gone across several different organizations that each had their own sales methodology, whether that's, the challenger sale or all these different things, right? So value-based selling. So having that experience through that process and pulling different pieces, because I don't think there's any one seller that's like, oh, I love this one selling motion and this is the one that I'm going to stick to forever, right? You take different pieces along the way with your own experience and your own stories to build ultimately what is going to be the way that you sell. So I think doing that, and then also just finally getting to a point where you're lucky enough to work for an organization where you really understand the value prop and you really believe in what it is that you're selling. Maybe not that first level job where you're just trying to make some income, right? But you actually get to an organization where you really believe in it, it ultimately becomes naturally easy to sell as well. So all those things combined, but of course, that's just part of the professional journey.
I love that, and the idea there. First, you're getting your sea legs when you're going to that first gig, but then you find something that you love. Maybe we need to bring you back in the future, finding that dream sales job, and I think you may be beneficial for our other podcasts, Selling in Color with that. So. Love it. So let's talk about this now. We're in a new COVID era. So specifically to COVID, getting down to the why, what else can we do when it comes towards overcoming objection in this new COVID era? We're getting down to whys. Anything else that we can assimilate or get to or work on?
Yeah, absolutely. So definitely knowing the why, like watch the why they need is watch it, but then also just having good gut instincts too, right? Because you have it, I think you alluded to it earlier, like there's some people that are truly struggling in business, right? We've all experienced it. And there's other people that are, let's just be real, taking advantage of the fact that COVID happened. And so it's a matter of using your gut instincts to kind of judge people's character, right? To understand what it is they're actually saying. And maybe if you've worked with them before, knowing, okay, this doesn't really sound like them. Something must really be up, or this is something new. Maybe there's a new, leadership in town. So kind of just using your gut intuition, but then also doing your research. There's a lot of companies that have a lot of articles written about them right now about how COVID is actually impacting them for the positive or the negative. And so if you've got that kind of that SDR mentality, right, where you're going in and searching and finding all the things that you need to prior to having a conversation, that can also arm you with being proactive, saying, hey, I know your business has been cut. Instead of cutting your price, I can do this for you instead. So again, just going back to knowing your research about what it is the company or customer that you're working with is actually going through, then you can be more prescriptive in your solution. So you're both.
It's like it's more like I'm speaking from the standpoint of a consultant, and I always share that. But it just makes so much sense, though, right? Mm-hmm. It's kind of, or even if you think about it from a friendship standpoint, if I think it's fair enough to say, Kristi, you and I are friends now. We've probably built this internet friendship even stronger over the years. But there'll probably be a point in this friendship where you will see something that I can improve on, and then I would hope at that point that you would share that and give me that idea. And it's kind of like the same thing. It's if I really care about you, like, oh man, let's see my friend over there is doing this thing. It'd be so much easier if he did this. Check this out, Donald.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think that's what it comes down to when a seller and two people. You may not have to be in a strong relationship for 50 years, but you can look at your prospect as is this how I would talk to a friend? Would I really want to help a friend?
Exactly. That trusted partner. Yep, that trusted partner that we always say during sales, like it's a partnership, but it's a matter of really being that, right? So if I can, for example, one of our customers is a pretty large enterprise customer at Sales Loft, and of course, right, everybody has their Google alerts about all their favorite clients, that sort of thing, right? And we saw they had these major layoffs, and so we knew their renewal was upcoming, so it was like, okay, they've laid off half of their workforce, like we can't afford to lose like $250,000 in ARR, right? So what can we do with this upcoming renewal to basically salvage the ARR, but also maintain the partnership? Because let's be real, there's always other more price-effective solutions out there, but we know you get what you pay for in every area of life. And so what we did is instead we knew they were going to reduce their total number of seats, because there's no point in having 1,000 seats of a SaaS solution when you have 500 people there, right? It just doesn't make sense. And so we saw that ahead of time, and prior to the renewal conversation, we had internal things at the company, and then we went ahead and devised a plan to protect the ARR, which was basically giving them more for fewer number of seats, as opposed to letting them win, right? Reducing the number of seats, but then giving them more so we can further support them from that value partner, right? But also from our perspective, we're more further entrenched because now we've got all these services and everybody is now able to reduce some of their tech stack from other providers because now you're more entrenched into the world of SalesLoft. So that's just one example of things that you can do to proactively accommodate whatever it is that COVID objection is, but also at the end of the day, we're all salespeople. We're all trying to make our dollar. So how do we protect that for us as
such
well?
A brilliant aspect. It's being, and I go back to what you're saying about that professional seller is someone that is, you're proactive rather instead of reactive. I think most people with objections, it happens in a reactive situation. The prospect said this, or I didn't think that was coming, so then therefore now I'm scrambling trying to figure out what to say. But the proactive salespeople, whether it's a client, like in your situation, or someone that I'm going to talk to for the first time, what can I preemptively go into that conversation knowing? And I think that's what separates the adult from the children when it comes to sales. Those adults are mature folks.
Yeah, and I think that exactly, and I think that comes from your sales training too, right? Because when we're we're starting in a new organization and we're going through their, whatever their onboarding process is, that reactive objection is how we're taught. It's okay, here's your scenario. Customer B, what would you do? It's kind of like an after the fact thing, whereas us experienced sellers who have been doing this and have these stories and points of reference to go to, we can say, in theory, okay, this is what I should have done for this other scenario, so now let me proactively eliminate or reduce this risk with this customer because I know this happened before. Most sales trainings that people go through don't teach the proactive, true consultant. It's more of it's just more of that beginning, right? Of, okay, customer A does this. What do you do? It's it's after the fact. And so I think from the beginning, if we can train more of our sellers on that proactive and really prescriptive sale, then more people will be upward faster.
True. Love this. We're coming down to the last little bit here. If there is one major takeaway you'd like somebody listening to this episode, going through COVID, battling through, trying to figure out how they're going to succeed, what's that one major piece of advice you'd give to them?
I would say do your research. That's the biggest thing. And for me, that's always, it's just something that will stick with you forever in every area of your life, but also, in sales specifically, because we live in a world now where there's so much content out there, whether it's the company's business, performance, their financials, LinkedIn, seeing where people are transitioning from role to role, where we have such an advantage over the sellers 30 years ago where they completely had to go through the phone to do, but we can now in a couple of clicks have so much information, tips, and so you have all of that and you can think in a, like we've been talking about, a consultative way to put all that together. People like being told what to do at the end of the day, and we all have very short attention spans. So if you, Donald, can come to me and say, hey Kristi, you need to buy this because this will help you with X, Y, and Z, and this is the benefit to you by doing this, I'm okay, you've sold me. I don't have to think about it. Nobody has, everybody has short attention span. We don't like to think about anything. So if you can take all of my history and background and what I like and tell me what I need to be doing, I'm going to do it. And that all comes from that seller.
So true.
Doing the research.
Absolutely love that. And I'm agreeing with you 100% on it. So I like it. Do your research, come prepared. And I love you gave some example there. LinkedIn, if it's a public traded company, look at their data, the content, the letters they're writing, their news briefs, so much. You're right.
Yeah, even people from just their socials. Before, it was a little bit creepy, right? You're oh, I saw on your Facebook. It's what? What are you talking about? But now, because everybody lives in this, at-home world, you have a glimpse into people's true home life, right? You see their kids walking around in the background, and you're talking about the live music virtual concerts, I should say, that people I would say are less protective of that because we so much long for having that interpersonal connection because we're not in the traditional office settings with people. So now, at least through my conversations, I found that people are less turned off, like, oh, I saw you did this on Twitter, or oh, I saw you on IG, you did this, because people want that, they long for that personal connection. So, use the resources that we're all on for our own personal benefit.
Kristi, tell us a little bit more about your role. You're working with Sales Loft. Mentioned that, and I talked about that a little bit in the teaser. Tell us about what you do, and give us, give a good shout out to our friend Kyle over there at Sales Loft. We were supposed to have him on our podcast a while back.
Yeah, KP. KP, yeah, he's amazing, and that's one of the great things about Sales Loft, like the leadership that we have there. I've worked for a lot of companies, and the leadership that we have is so transparent and supportive of their people first, and I think that's what makes Sales Loft, year over year, a best place to work, because it just, like, and I'm not the type to, like, drink the Kool-Aid or be a part of, like, the cult, like, it really, like, I didn't believe it before I joined Sales Loft, but it is an amazing organization to be a part of. I'm very thankful. As far as my role specifically, I'm a senior customer renewals manager for our enterprise segment. So what that means is I manage all of our enterprise client renewals. So on an annual or multi-year basis, whenever their contract is up, it's working with them to identify what solutions do they need for the next years ahead, and working with a rep to hopefully get them some upsell opportunities that we can tie into renewal, because we know that
folks out there want to get in touch with you, and even just to learn about Sales Loft or just to connect with Kristi, because Kristi's pretty amazing, pretty awesome. How did they go about doing that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm Kristi Strickland on LinkedIn and all the professional stuff. And then my IG, for example, is _ keep period classy with
we'll link that back into our show notes so we can get access to that. You can connect there. Kristi, appreciate your insight. Appreciate your willingness to come on the show today. That was Kristi Strickland, and I'm so glad you got a chance to listen to us today. If you haven't done so already, please go ahead and hit subscribe. And if you're watching this on YouTube, on TSC TV, please subscribe and hit that chime, and we'll notify you every time we have an episode. Kristi, you can find her on all of those platforms, and we have her information down below. If you're watching this on YouTube, if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, the information's in the cover art, how you can, on the show notes, just click on the cover art, and you'll see some information how you can get in touch with Kristi. I highly recommend you do so. She's a great individual, a great friend of the organization, and great efforts in helping salespeople continue to progress and grow. I want you to succeed. And speaking about that, I want you to take advantage of the offers from our friends who are sponsoring this podcast. They've given us some great deals, and they're for you. So please use them. As always, I want you to find more of those ideal customers. I want you to know what to say when you reach out to them, and I want you to close more deals. But most importantly, I want you to raise your level of thinking and go out and do big things. Thanks so much for watching. Hey, thanks so much for taking the time to watch this video today. If you enjoyed the content, I ask you to go ahead and hit that like button, that thumbs up at the bottom right-hand corner. Also, to make sure to subscribe if you haven't done so already. This way, we'll keep you up to date with all the latest sales strategies, latest tools, and things that are going to help you to not only find more prospects, but to close more deals. Thanks so much.